Oh, yeah.
Politics, more like politricks with your polipricks.
Oh, yeah.
Politics with your polipricks.
What's up? Whoops, I forgot to add Brian. There we go.
What's happening?
What's up?
Yeah.
Hey, Polipricks. How's everybody doing out there in the world of politics? We have a lot to talk about today in regards to Donald Trump and Thomas Massie. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk to Lou about the Twitter feud he's currently having with an American literary icon.
Yeah. How about that? If anybody follows me over on the old X, they'll be seeing me at war with Joyce Carol Oates, who I have to admit, the first time that I had a short story published in a literary magazine, it was with Fiction Magazine a long time ago, and it was a collection of short stories. I was in it. Joyce Carol Oates was in it. Oh. I happened to sit on the board of the advisory board of Heresy Press, along with Joyce Carol Oates.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys have history.
We have history. I never got into Princeton. I didn't even apply to Princeton. I think that's where she teaches. So yeah, she's a great author, great novelist, very well respected, and a complete retard when it comes to discussing anything outside of fiction. The shit that she puts out is incredible. It's a lot of blue-pilled nonsense. And I'm actually working on a piece about Luigi, the musical. There's a musical. They performed it on the West Coast. They're bringing it to New York. So I got tickets. I'm going to go see it. I want to talk to people who are going to see it, see what, their thoughts are, what the vibes are. So, I check out the old Twitter thread and all that. And she had shared an article from the New York Post dealing with Luigi, and she had said something along the lines of, this young man threw away his life to kill basically an executive that would be replaced by another executive and replaced by another executive and replaced by another executive, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that was, kind of the gist of it, which, if you read between the lines, it's a disparagement of the murder victim and everything around, everything surrounded that. And then I saw she was in another little Twitter spat with somebody in regards to Rothko paintings. Someone had pointed out that a Rothko had gone for $98 million. And I am boring the shit out of everybody.
No, I'm not bored.
So, I'm going
to see that Mandalorian Rothko movie maybe this weekend.
Nice. So, she was like doing this Twitter spat, with somebody and basically, justifying the cost of a Rothko, because you get to see it in person and it's art and it's culture, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm thinking, wow, here you are justifying $98 million. But yeah, in the other one, you're like, oh, look at, another, if this dipshit is murdered, another executive is going to come. But meanwhile, the whole thing clouding that whole Luigi thing is this idea of, as Hassan Piker, put it, of social murder, the actions of these people at these corporations, at these companies, justify, basically their own murder because of the murder that they're committing, all that bullshit. And I wanted to go share it with her, and she took it down. She took down her tweet. So I asked her, why? So I asked her, why did you remove, can you imagine how many lives the 98 million could save? And this is in regard to the other thing that you put up. So then, whatever, more, Twitter bullshit is, going
also
back
the irony as well in her defending the 98 million, she's shitting on CEOs and rich people on one part, and the 98 million, anybody that knows anything about art knows that the 98 million is a farce. Right. It's a completely made up figure, because all that happens with works of art is that rich people buy them, and then they mark the value as 98 million, then they donate it as a $98 million value so they can write off $98 million on their taxes. It's a complete scam. It's the reason.
And then Hunter Biden makes $1 bazillion.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's a great artist.
Yeah. So I'm in the fight with her, and then I'm on like another thing. I'm in a fight with well, she doesn't even know I exist. Fran Lebowitz, who basically said that the billionaires add nothing to the city, New York City. They could just get out of here. You don't add anything. It's like, well, if they don't add anything, well, then don't take any of their money, right? So we're sort of at this weird, this interesting point where nobody likes the wealthy and nobody wants billionaires, but yet they want them to fund everything. And then when they threaten to leave, like say leave New York City, you have these people coming out of the woodwork and trying to shame them into staying. And, people who make a minimum wage have self-respect. People who make a good, a better living than that have self-respect. I think, wealthy people probably have at least as much self-respect as a minimum wage worker. And if they're not being treated well, they're going to want to get the fuck out of there. And then suddenly I got some, oh my God, I can't believe the look on the face on some guy who just came at me. He calls himself a political punk, middle-aged political punk, saying that billionaires don't pay taxes, stupid. And that's the whole point. So
not with the art scams.
Yeah. With the art scam. Meanwhile, it's like, dude, the New York needs its millionaires. It needs its billionaires to fund it. New York has an insanely large budget. And to pretend that the wealthy do not pay more than their share in taxes is so stupid. So
this is very much in the spirit of Mayor Katie Wilson out in Seattle, who she was joining the baristas who were trying to unionize, and she's like, yeah, we don't need Starbucks, they can leave Seattle. And then they're like, okay, bet. Okay. And they started moving a large portion of their layout down to Nashville. Right. So it's like, and now she's like, oh, wait, maybe would she just say my comments didn't help the matter or something like that?
Yeah.
But
it's
the FAFO.
Yeah. By the way, I'm laughing. The Trump bots are out. There's a comment here. It's so funny. They go, it's so funny to watch people scratch and claw to get people to believe that libertarians are done with Trump. We haven't even talked about it yet.
Well, it's the title. It's the title of the show, Brian.
It is, but still, we're not even talking about it. How are we scratching and clawing? We haven't even talked about it.
Yeah, we're not even like pawing at it. I mean, I just went on a whole fucking monologue about my ex drama. So
yeah, it's too funny.
Well, what I will say this about Joyce Carol Oates is never trust a woman who uses two first names, not only one but two. You just can't trust that.
Yep, exactly. So let's transition into the topic du jour, which is Trump dead to libertarians after his most recent attacks on Thomas Massie? And let me see here, Brian, you shared an article with us. Let me see if I can bring that up from your website here. But obviously, Donald Trump dislikes Thomas Massie, even though he had clearly endorsed Thomas Massie last time around and said that he had that was fantastic, and Thomas Massie used the things that Trump had said about him in his campaign ads, and now of course he is the devil
well,
incarnate.
To be accurate, Trump hated Massie back in 2020 also,
right? He did.
And then this is politics, and then Massie came back. I mean, people are trying to maintain office. Massie also. So one of the things Massie did is when Trump was running again in 2024 is they made a kind of famous deal, right? If Trump was able to get reelected, then he would free Ross Ulbricht. And that was part of the exchange for the endorsement, Trump endorsing Massie. So Trump did follow through on that. Ross Ulbricht is free. And I did just see that his wife is now pregnant. So congratulations to the Ulbrichts.
That's awesome.
Oh, hold on.
First thing you get out of jail, can you blame him? Like, I mean,
Conjugal
You do hope,
visits, I would imagine. I thought it would have happened earlier. And congrats to Lynn, Ross's mom. Lynn is a wonderful person, and
She is.
She must be ecstatic about this.
Yeah, she's speaking at the Libertarian Convention actually this weekend.
Oh,
I thought one of you was going to keep going there. Yeah, it killed the show. So anyway, now coming in here, Thomas Massie, of course, has stood up to a lot of the big spending bills. These omnibus spending bills that he got in the way. One, of course, he objected to one because it incorporated domestic spying with CISA. He obviously has stood up against the automotive triggers, the automatic monitoring of every single American with these ridiculous kill switches, driver monitoring systems that basically disable your car if it feels you are not up to the government standard of driving. I mean, he's stood in the way of things that are important to stand in the way of, while also pushing for the release of the Epstein files. Now, whether this is purely based on the quote unquote obstructionism that Donald Trump and hardcore MAGA cult members will adhere to, or whether this is over the Epstein issue remains to be debated. But I think that at the end of the day, this was essentially, in a way, a win-win in the way I look at it. Number one, if Thomas Massie gets reelected and wins that primary, great. He's still a congressman. On the other side, the flip side of it, if he loses, which he did, you are basically looking at the patent buying of a seat with I think it was a $35 million total spend. I think Thomas Massie's campaign spent 25 million spent against him. Again, a lot of this money is coming from Miriam Adelson, AIPAC. Obviously, the amount of ads, the amount of attacks from Donald Trump, which are amplified on Fox Media. So it's really showcased to American citizens. And I'm seeing a lot of people on the right that were former MAGA also talk about this. It showcased just that our country is not run by our countrymen. So my wife's going to an event. So you're seeing laid bare that you can, number one, purchase flat out a congressional seat for somebody that was beloved, almost invincible within his district. And also you're seeing a lot of shady numbers come out of this, where the turnout was 356% higher than, for Galrein, or, I think I'd say his name, than in any other race. The numbers aren't adding up as far as voter turnout in this race. So there's a lot of shady stuff going on behind the scenes in that way too. Again, but you're not allowed to question it. The Donald Trump administration said they will not be looking into any allegations of voter fraud, which is hilarious on its face, considering, all the things on 2020. So I'll leave you guys with those starting points for convo.
So it's obvious that this, first and foremost, was a foreign influence on a national election, right? I think we can all agree on that. I wrote that article. I broke it down in the numbers. Specifically, there were 3 organizations, between them like 15.5 million between the 3, and amongst them Miriam Adelson, Sheldon Adelson's widow. She was one of the bigger donors. And I mean, yes, there is a direct correlation between that plus Massie being anti-war in Israel, or I'm sorry, war in Iran, but I repeat myself. And then also the correlation with the Epstein files, right? I mean, you can't not look at that. And it speaks to something we've talked about here in the show many a time, that they being the Israel lobby knew that they were running out of time, which is why they had to do this, because the boomer generation, who predominantly went for Gallerin, they are all the older voters, and they are inevitably going to be dying off. And I wrote about this in the article. I mean, 2, 4, 6 years, a lot of those voters, especially in the boomer generation, they're going to start to just statistically disappear as they hit the mortality cliff. So you put it all together, this was a perfect storm for Israel to jump in, take out one of the loudest detractors, the guy who proudly says he does not have an AIPAC handler, right? And they went out of their way, and Trump went out of his way to make an example of him. And unfortunately, you have a lot of clapping seals in the GOP who went right along with it. I mean, the Steven Crowders, the Benny Johnsons, the Dinesh D'Souza's, and, even some folks, I was a little surprised, like, not really getting back and rah-rahing, supporting Massie. Some of the voices who I thought would have been out there. I mean, even someone like a Matt Walsh, right? Like, he didn't say anything, and he's been out there before saying Massie's one of the best congressmen. It's like, dude, like, talk about dropping the ball. And yeah, I mean, just across the board, it's very disappointing, but I mean, kind of saw it was coming, right? We all, after Massie was the one being the loud voice and standing up and saying, no, we have to release the Epstein files and actually hold people accountable. Like, he became target number one.
Yeah, on my show, I made that exact same point, by the way, about Israel. And this is kind of the last gasp. This is the last chance to get all the cookies out of the cookie jar, and 100% that's what they're doing. Not only in to push the war, but as far as let's get as much funding out of America. Let's rape and pillage the coffers while we can still get it.
Yeah, I mean, I like Thomas Massie. If I lived in Kentucky, I would have voted for him. I wanted him to win. At the same time, and I said this on our Mufasa call that we have with our top patrons once a month. So if you want to talk with us, the four of us, once a month, you can go to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty or whatever it is on Locals, and
lionsofliberty.locals.com.
Yeah, and join for $25 or more a month, and you can talk with us. But anyway, as I was saying then, I mean, I saw this coming, and the catalyst to me for why this was different than 2020 was Massie opposing the big, beautiful bill. When that happened, I mean, it was there was no coming. Trump was not turning around on it. He was not going to make up with Massie. Massie doubled down against Trump. Trump doubled down against, tripled down, quadrupled down against Massie. And that was it. And yeah, there was foreign interference, maybe the most in any congressional race that we've ever seen. But we see foreign interference in almost every political race in this country. This was just magnified to a massive degree. So I don't think, like, a lot of libertarians have said, like, this is the end of liberty. Liberty is dead. And the Mises Caucus tweeted out, well, now we have to run Thomas Massie in the presidential election. I think that would be one of the dumbest things you could do. You'll be handing the party back to Gavin Newsom or AOC or whoever is in charge of the Democrats or whoever is nominated at that point in time. But we're probably getting way out over our skis here. But I just think, like, the reaction to it, which, not surprisingly, very emotional earlier this week when it happened on Tuesday night. And not a lot of measured responses coming from libertarians, just kind of like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. When, I mean, kind of knew this was going to happen. If you're following things, keeping things in perspective, this is not surprising.
So a question that I have, because I wasn't following it very closely, but I don't live in Kentucky. I think, John, I'm with you, where if I lived in Kentucky, it would be Massie and Rand Paul. Those would be, two of the guys that I'd be voting for. That being said, I don't know what is most important for Kentucky voters, because all the only stuff that I've heard about, Massie, just like kind of like being online, it either involves Israel or involves the Epstein files. Now, I don't know if those two issues are at the top of most importance to Kentucky voters, So it might be, kind of an issue where, what's important to, like, us isn't necessarily important to the voters themselves. I don't want to rule that out,
Well, but then I also look back, though. Massie's been in office for 12 years. And are the issues important to voters? Let's say it's a voter importance issue.
Yeah.
Well, all the people that voted for Gowron were boomers, essentially. It was like 65% of 55 and over voted for Gowron, and everybody 55 and under, again, 65, 70% voted for Massie.
The breakdown was, if you were under the age of 55, here, I'll just give the quick breakdown. 17 25, you were plus 25. These are all plus Massie, right? Plus 25 Massie, 26 to 35, plus 56 Massie, 36 to 45 plus 38 Massie, 46 to 55 plus 17 Massie. And now here's where it flips, right? If you were 56 to 65 plus 18 Galrain, 66 to 75 plus 35 Galrain. If you were older than 76, you went plus Galrain 33. So, right there, that's the breakdown, right? It's the older Gen X and boomers, and then what's left of who's before boomers? Silent generation?
Oh, you mean older than silent generation?
I don't know. They never
it's a small generation. They never say anything.
Never say anything. I never know they're there. They're like the Amish. I never know they're there until they block traffic.
They were just overwhelmed by the boomers. Biden, silent generation. But I think that this does highlight, so obviously looking at those numbers, you would look at it, be like, well, if young people turned out, then obviously Massie won. Well, they didn't. So that's what happened there. So it kind of, a dynamic of it also is, I think people like us, podcasters, people who are, giving our opinions, we're very tuned into what's happening on X. We're tuned into these influencers in the podcast sphere. I don't think that they have the influence that we think they do in the grand scheme of things.
Not among older people.
No. And I don't think necessarily across the board, even with, it's kind of unique to be like this tuned into politics, especially hyper-focused libertarian party stuff. That's like almost nobody knows anything about that. So I think we can get kind of skewed. And if you look at
code stuff,
if you look at what happened with Vivek in Ohio, Vivek basically did nothing on X. He stopped using it. He went and campaigned, talked to the people, did events in person, and he smoked his opponent. Massie was looking, I'm not saying he was looking for fame, but he was out there in front trying to get on national media. Was he in Kentucky going around? Was he having town halls? I don't know. I honestly don't know.
He's been in office for 12 fucking years.
Does he have town halls in Kentucky? I really don't know. Maybe they want to hear from him.
I'm sure he did some, but that's the thing is he's been in office for 12 years. To think that they don't know who he is mind boggling to me. And to me, like you're saying, the older people are not on X. They're watching Fox News. They're being inundated by propaganda. I think it's just a matter down. And again, this is, like I said, there's some shady stuff as far as voter turnout, especially when you consider how old everybody is that voted for him. But that's what I'm saying is these people are just watching Fox News, and Donald Trump being able to work the media as he does, of course, which he's unbelievable at working the media. Every time he goes out there and says anything about Thomas Massie, he knows that beyond the reach on Truth Social or whatever they put on X, it's every single thing is going to be covered by Fox News repeatedly. So these people are getting inundated by this one-sided propaganda from the Trump campaign, backed by AIPAC. They've got advertisements up the ass that are amplifying and magnifying it. And that every time they turn on Fox News, they're going to be hit. It's like the old advertising adage of you have to see something 7 times for it to stick in your brain. This is advertising. You have to see the product 7 times to get the message. These people heard that message 70,000 times tuning into Fox News. So it's not brainwashing, but the fact that they will ignore his historical record, which I'm sure, by the way, he stood up and was doing things for Kentucky and fighting for Kentuckers, fighting for these people. And we're just completely brainwashed by the narrative. And that's the only thing I can take away from it. For a guy, speaking about Gallrin, look, you're saying maybe Massie didn't go campaign in Kentucky. Gallrin didn't do anything. He is an empty suit. He wouldn't even fucking debate.
I can't even say his name.
He was.
I don't even know his name. I've just seen it.
Yeah, nobody does because he didn't do it. He did nothing. He did nothing. It was a one-way propaganda from Trump and advertisements. And magically, this worked on the boomers, which is just mind-blowing.
Well, think about how the boomers grew up, right? They grew up with the source of truth being the TV, right? It was a homogenous culture. You had your one source of truth for the education system. You had your one source of truth to get alternative education, which would be going to the library, talking to the same type of people in your community. So it was all very much one way of thinking. So you think about how they've adopted in a world where you can talk to anyone, access any information. It's almost like they've willingly put themselves in a position where they only hear what they want to hear. It's like we talk about the dangers of echo chambers and being in a silo. I think at times boomers willingly, almost like purposefully go out of their way to put themselves in a silo so they can make their own world that they want it to be. And God bless them. I mean, they've been the generation in control. So they kind of have been able to do that and get away with it. But now it's like, they're kind of getting to that point where it's the chickens are going to come home to roost because like the younger generation, we're so different, right? Like we are so opposite to what they're doing. And at the end of the day, like I don't think there's any hope for the boomers, which is why, it is so important for us to push the young voters to actually get out and vote. But like, this has been the age old problem. This is like the old get out the vote stuff where they do rock the vote, right? Like young people just don't vote. It's not sexy.
Yeah, but then what happens when they do vote? then who do they go
Exactly.
with?
They vote
They're
for
gonna go
Obama.
for people on the left.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like
the younger generation skews heavily right compared to like every other youth generation right now.
The youngest, like Gen
the
Z does.
8-year-olds.
Yeah.
The second graders, the third graders. They're all little Rush Limbaughs.
Yeah. But it's looking at the turnout, as we said, looking at that young generation, it will be curious to see how people evolve and whether or not, like I was seeing again a lot of different commentary about as I mentioned earlier, the fact that this was essentially bought, by a foreign entity. And that begs the question, number one, will people be disenfranchised from voting? Like Ari Shaffir, comedian Ari Shaffir was talking about this and basically saying, yeah, I don't know. The system's so broken now. I now don't give a shit about voting because you get the same policies, which is when you look at it, we're getting the same policies. We're getting the same spending. We're getting the same wars. We're getting the same welfare system. Nothing, the Doge cuts didn't happen.
We're really not,
getting all the
though.
same
I mean,
policies.
saying like, oh, it's the same. Gavin Newsom might as well be president. That's kind of where I'm like, are you crazy? I mean, you live just outside of LA. I mean, you know what it's like in California. I mean, we all know what AOC would do to the country if she was president. Saying they're the same
maybe
is
not.
it's insane.
The only thing that is markedly different is the immigration issue, in my opinion. Everything else is more or less the same. The spending's the exact, like I said, the spending's the exact same. No policy. We're still at the same amount of spying. We still have the same government intrusion in our lives, more so even, in fact, than when Biden was in office from some of this crap that's passed with Trump in office. We can't get the SAVE Act passed, right? Even though 85% of America wants it and you've got Trump in the office, we cannot get the SAVE Act passed. That piece of shit Thune won't even bring it to a vote. So I don't believe anymore that AOC is going to do anything different. I think she's going to do the same shit. It's going to be everyone you vote, no matter who you vote for, you get John McCain, right? That's either way, east side of the spectrum. When you get into the office, Barack Obama, this left-wing scion, he divided us racially. I'll give him credit for that, being a piece of shit. But his policies from a top down were identical to the Republicans. He bombed the shit out of people. He kept spending high. He still had, it's like everything was the exact same, whether you had a Republican or Democrat in there.
I don't know. I don't. Donald Trump hasn't tried to force vaccinate anyone.
Well,
That's
he
nice.
definitely was. He was proudly leading the charge to shut us down and push COVID vaccines. He wasn't in office, obviously, to mandate them like a Biden, but people seem to forget that he was leading the charge and rah.
Yeah, I know. Operation Warp Speed was terrible.
Yeah.
I agree, but I mean, just looking at the record, comparing the two sides, immigration's huge. What Biden did to this country in his 4 years in office was horrible. If that happens again, we don't have a country. So you say, oh, immigration's different. The woke stuff being stamped out is massive. I think those two things alone are worth it.
Supreme Court. I mean, this is by the way, this is what your average person, by the way, I think about our show, they appreciate is that we're able to have this kind of a conversation because we're not just going in saying it's black and white one way or the other. Like when you sit down, you're trying to strategically vote. These are the things you have to think about, right? Because there were objective good that came with Trump and there's objective bad. And I mean, John, I think, you're pointing out some objective good that's come with Trump, especially on the immigration stuff. I mean, look at the Supreme Court, look at the cultural issues. But I mean, Brian's bringing up a lot of good points. He's the one who enabled Anthony Fauci. He enabled the Summer of Love. We enabled the lockdowns. You go back, he's enabled the increased spending. As a matter of fact, that's the first time when he went to war with Thomas Massie, when Thomas Massie was the lone vote coming out saying he wanted to be on record to make sure that, somebody stood up and then at a time when nobody else was willing to. And I think, that's the truth about the Trump administration on both the 2016 to 2020, as well as 2024 to where we are today, is like, we're going to get objective good and objective bad. It's on us to call balls and strikes, try to contextualize them the best we can. I think I'm very much like, I think I'm a little bit leaning John right now, just because, and it's because the objective weight of a positive Trump administration. Looking at the Supreme Court, for example, look, we are now getting the opportunity.
Well, I agree. The Supreme Court's an win. Yeah.
Right. But that's a huge win that only came from Trump being able to nominate those justices. I mean, yes, it was Mitch McConnell getting them through from a strategic process, but we don't even have that conversation to get those people in office unless Trump is there. So like, with all that being said, I don't know, man. Like I have trouble looking at Trump and just, having this libertarian, like, now he's evil. And then, on the other side, like, oh, he's God. Like, no, he's neither of those things. He's a human. He's flawed. He's going to do good. He's going to do bad. And I think it's just on us to try to objectively weigh it the best we can. And that's tough.
Well, it is tough. Well, and the thing that really is getting under my skin that pisses me off, because up until this happened, I've been honestly just looking at everything Trump does in its own spectrum. Like, okay, that immigration's over here, Supreme Court's over there. I'll judge it issue by issue by issue. The thing that makes me disgusted is that he would, again, go after Thomas Massie and work with AIPAC and Israel on this, and to show that the allegiance is not, in my opinion, is not to America and, make America great, because he is in the pocket of Israel. And that's made it became blatantly clear to me that if he's willing to do something like this and go to this extent, when what this race is, when the people that are backing him and exactly why they're doing it is so transparent, that is despicable and makes me question everything about him to his core. Mic drop. Lou, you look like you have something to say.
I was going to say, Lou, you've been quiet.
I know I've been quiet. I've been
contemplating.
I'm sorry. While you guys have been arguing about the fate of the country, I've been going at it with some
Temu customer service,
some guys online. So,
well, as long as you have your head in the right space. I mean,
I know, as long as
right now,
I'm in the moment. I know where I am. We're live. Well,
tell Joyce Carol we said hi.
Oh yeah, no. Now I'm having an argument with. I love how people. It's this really fun thing where people will call you like a dumb fuck dickhead, and share information that's just completely not true. Like, so for example, in the
like saying that Thomas Massie is a Democrat and votes with Democrats all the time when he is the highest ranking freedom index of any congressman, including Turning Point USA, which neglected to endorse him. Yeah,
you know what, you're bringing it back to the subject at hand, and I respect that. No, like I just got called a dumb fuck. Let's see.
Mom, get out of my Twitter feed.
I know, Mom, get out of here. In regards to billionaires in New York City, right? They don't pay any money, you dumb fuck. That's the point.
They don't pay any money. They pay $0. Nothing comes out of it.
They stay and pay tax, or they go, and then housing gets way cheaper because they're not buying all the penthouses at the same prices, competing with each other to be the biggest dickhead.
I blame the schools for that.
Yeah, guys, and it turns out that the top 1% in New York City pays almost half of the city's taxes. Now, I'd be interested to hear the person I'm having this conversation with, what percentage of the 1% are billionaires, because, paying nearly half of the city's taxes. I think that kind of answers your question about how important they are to the city. But I'm sorry. It's like I'm having a meta argument. This is so dumb. I'm so sorry for doing this to you guys.
All right, well, let me bring it back. So I titled the episode "Trump Dead to Libertarians" with a question mark, right? So let's get into that, because as we know, Donald Trump came to Libertarian Convention. We talked about, he made his pledge to free Russ Ulbricht. He did live up to that pledge. Do you think that Donald Trump, and I know a lot of libertarians who voted for Donald Trump. I know Odie voted for Trump. I know a lot of other people voted for Trump. Brian voted for Trump. Is that 3%, which people will scoff at it? Oh, libertarians are only 3%. Well, there's way more libertarians than the 3% that are registered, number one. But that made a difference. If people don't think that however many libertarians, 1 million libertarians that voted for Trump didn't make a difference in a very tight election, they're kidding themselves. So do you think Donald Trump, after this action against Massie, after this support for Israel, after the spending, and the wars that are going on, is he still palatable to libertarians? Will people be able to, in our space, look at Trump and take things issue by issue? And like we're talking about, look at, say, and weigh what's the greater good? Is the greater good outweighing the negative? Or is this the point in which people go, you know what? Fuck him forever. I'm not going to support him or any candidates that he might put forth from now on.
I guess the question first is what comes next after him, right? Like where do we see this going? Because unless something completely unforeseen or biblical happens, right? Like Trump is leaving the White House at the end of his term. So what comes from him after that? Is it going to be a Vance Rubio Republican Party? Is it going to be an Israel run Republican Party? Is it going to be a more Rand Paul, Thomas Massie Republican Party? Probably not. It doesn't look that way right now, right? So I guess those questions need to be asked, but then just as important, we have to ask relative to what? And this is the problem, and not you, Brian, asking this question, but when we put these questions in a vacuum, it's like, yeah, he's dead to me up until there's someone worse, right? Who's more dangerous, who's putting my family and our livelihoods even more so at risk. And this kind of goes to John's point, right? Like some folks may think the immigration thing isn't that big of a deal, but for families who are, facing the influx of immigration in their communities firsthand, it's a really big deal. So for them, they're going to be like, yeah, this is my blinking red light. And if we neglect that, right, then we're neglecting the issues that people are really concerned about. So I say all that. Am I going to be done with Trump forever? I can't say that I am, right? Because much like just today, Rand Paul tweeted, Donald Trump is 100% right about ending birthright citizenship, right? And he's going about it from a libertarian perspective, right? And it's like, yeah, I can almost guarantee that Rand Paul, also from Kentucky, like best buddies with Thomas Massie, who was endorsing him in the campaign, I'm pretty sure he's burned from this, right? But you know what? Like, Trump's a vessel. He's a tool. He's a means to an end to get whatever wins we can get. Like, I've been a little upset at the way that Austin Peterson's reacted to some of the Trump, Massie election and the reaction thereafter. But I understand Austin's point, right? Like, I get it, because Austin's point is, listen, we are from a libertarian perspective. You're right, Brian. We're not just 3%, but we're definitely not, over 10, I would say 10% in the overarching voter base. So let's just, keep that in mind, that the wins we can get, it's all relative to how proportional we are to the other people out there who matter, right? And that's the part that also is important to pay attention to. So again, I know it's not the perfect answer, like, are we done with him forever? I personally am not, but that's the context in terms of why at least I think we have to have some nuance there.
Also, sorry,
go ahead,
John. I was just going to say, I mean, this is his second term. He's 80 some odd years old.
He doesn't age. He's still 60.
I know. No, he's
McDonald's preservatives keeping him pristine.
That's right.
He sleeps in a hyperbaric chamber filled with French fry grease.
Yeah, no, he's under the hot lamp that all the French fries are on.
That's the secret. Yeah.
But like that being said, it's sort of what to Brian's point, it's like what do things look like 2 years from now? I don't know who's taking over. Like, is it a given that JD Vance is the front runner for president? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, what do things look like 2 months from now? In 2 years, it's hard to. Yeah, the world is so crazy right now. Things can do a 180 so quickly. But I'm glad you brought up Austin Peterson. That reminded me. I don't think it was either on one of his tweets or Jeremy Kauffman's tweets, because they were both kind of saying similar things.
By the way, just had context for those who don't know, Austin Peterson is a former libertarian presidential candidate who was big in the movement, who's still involved and still libertarian, but is going a little bit more, I think, away and a little bit more towards the little more mainstream GOP at this point, but still a popular political pundit.
He's trying to make famous libertarian nationalism.
Yeah, he and I've had conversations with Austin about not on my podcast or anything like that, but just like in friendly conversations about this idea of like libertarian nationalism and what does that mean? What does that entail? I think it's interesting. So.
Yeah, I had Austin on probably about a year ago, maybe longer, but one of us should talk to him again soon. Anyway, I kind of lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. So in response to one of, I think it was Jeremy Kauffman's tweet, now that I think about it, but somebody had Michael Heiss was commenting about like we tried the carrot technique with Trump and Ross Ulbricht and that whole thing. now it's time to break out the stick. And my response was, I don't think the Libertarian Party realizes they don't have a stick. It's just all they have is a carrot. It's the only thing you have is a carrot. You don't have the power. Like, I feel like libertarians are delusional in this way. Yes, maybe you can influence some races and maybe it'll align every so many presidential elections where you can sway it one way or the other, or you can sway like a congressional race here or there, or a Senate seat here or there. But yeah, you don't have huge numbers, and the way the party's been going. I know you're involved, Brian. I'm not taking a shot at you, but the party has been skewing way left. Like, that's not a secret. So, I mean, a lot of people on the right who identify as libertarians are pretty disgusted by the Libertarian Party.
Yeah, it's an ongoing fight. I mean, right now, I'm literally emailing with a Wall Street Journal reporter right now, and as soon as we finish this, I have to get back to him and get a quote for him from our chair, because one of my friends, Ben Weir, who's on the Libertarian National Committee, had put forth a motion which would require business attire at a convention. So no more idiots on stage who are naked, who that guy, I guess, now identifies as trans, but no more idiots running on stage naked, no more people dressing up in fairy costumes, because his argument is that it makes us deeply unserious people. And frankly, I agree with it. I understand that there's a debate between freedom of expression and libertarianism, which of course we believe in, and the distraction that this causes for the party, where that's all that gets covered is the asshole on stage that's naked. And I agree that when you are in a professional setting, when you know there's going to be eyes on you, it makes sense to say, hey, let's act like adults here and let's try to put forth a professional demeanor. So that's an ongoing topic of debate. But to your point, there's people reportedly threatening to leave the party because they can't wear tap shoes and a tutu and a top hat.
Addition by subtraction, Brian. Addition by subtraction.
Yeah. Sorry. So but to Odie's point, this is the problem. It's when you do have these left skewing tendencies, and that became a big problem during the last election cycle with our presidential candidate. That is, it's going to drive a wedge between us and our typical coalition partners, which would be typically the GOP. And while we do draw from both sides, yeah, it's a problem, and you're not wrong in that. So I'll give my quick take on Trump. Now, I as Odie mentioned, I was very pissed off. I've never been more pissed off about a presidential or a political action than I was after this Thomas Massie primary loss. And, I had gotten on a rant basically saying, fuck Trump forever, but I do agree. I'm calmer now, and I do agree. There's no way to be done with him, because you have to take the wins we could get him. We don't have power. All we have is influence. All we have is, as we say, trying to form a coalition where we can try to push topics to the forefront where we can culturally try to impact things. But yeah, we don't have any power. So when there are big wins, and we'll see what happens. If Trump can end birthright citizenship, fantastic. If we can push forward more anti-DEI policies, fantastic. If somehow we can rein in, these different NGO spending fraud rings, right now what he's doing at the DOJ, for example, is fantastic. Defunding states like California, where I live, for the amount of fraud they have in the Medicare system is fantastic. And I'm not going to take away from that. So while I am furious, and as I said, I still do stand by the fact that I don't trust him at any point anymore, I will take the victories where we can. So I can't say I'm done with Donald Trump and any of his disciples, but we'll have to see what shakes out. I mean, if it continues the trend in this direction, especially in regards to Israel, then I do have to take a step back and say, this is just poison. This is every drop that comes from this guy is poisoning the well. And at the end of the day, the good is not going to balance out the bad. But right now, issue by issue.
Yeah, I think it's really tough in that, like we've sort of been laying out, like the lack of power that the Libertarian Party, has, but also just us as individuals too. Like what power do we have? I mean, Brian, you're in fucking California. I'm in New Jersey. And
I'm not even tanned. That's the worst part. What am I doing here?
And, something that I just notice is, even if we look over at, what's happening in LA, the amount of like the discourse where anybody who just seems to be complaining about what would just be, normal things like, hey, I'm really upset that there's so many tents in front of my kid's school. They're being called MAGA, and it's just sort of like it just seems like all political discourse has just been like it's either you're MAGA or you're not, or you're like all the way, on the far left. And I don't know. I wonder if that is going to continue, like you said, 2 years from now, 2 months from now, where, is it possible to actually say like, no, these are actually like concerns that people have no matter where they are, no matter who they're, supporting nationally on the local level. And rather than using it as a way of like saying like, oh, don't listen to this person. It's like, no, you should probably take people seriously. Like there are people who are going to be supporting Spencer Pratt who didn't vote for Trump in California.
Well, it's interesting. The point about MAGA or not is it's amplified for both sides, right? You've got assholes like Nithya Raman, who's a socialist, who now I think is basically her campaign's dead, but she was trying to be mayor of Los Angeles, calling Spencer Pratt MAGA. And you're saying it's MAGA or not, but also the MAGites are out there calling anybody who's not completely in line with Trump and supports every stupid thing he says, and the ousting of Thomas Massie and all the AIPAC support. They're like, oh, you're just a Democrat. You're like, saying that doesn't help you either. Like, how does this help your cause? Labeling anybody who disagrees with you on any issue. I just did a Trump mannerism there. Well, it's any issue, a Democrat, like you're also being fucking retarded.
The TDS like works, both ways, I guess.
Yeah.
And was what I found
Trump
funny
derangement syndrome and Trump demagogue syndrome.
Yeah. What I found funny was the guy who's running, up in Maine, was it Plantner? I don't know how to say his last name. He's the guy who had like the Nazi tattoo.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about that is like there's stuff coming out about him, like stuff like posts that he made about like going to Thailand and banging hookers and stuff, and all this stuff. Like
he's got my vote.
It keeps piling on, and I'm like, dude, if he switched parties, fucking Republicans would love this guy. They would so easily turn and be like, dude, this guy's based, man. He doesn't give a fuck about about all this stuff. So
yeah. Yeah, it's always fun on X when you're in like two different argument threads, and one thread is calling you a Democrat and the other thread's calling you MAGA, and it's like, what is happening here?
My friend Boris Hyken, he's a great comedian, and he has a bit. I hope I do it justice, Boris. But he says that he doesn't have like political opinions. So what he'll do is he has a friend who's a conservative and a friend who's a progressive. And he'll be texting them, but just he'll be having them do the same conversation. Whatever the other one's saying, that's what he's saying to the other one. So he's letting them talk through him. He's the conduit.
I love that. That's great. All right. Well, any final thoughts, gents, before we wrap up this interesting edition? This is a good show. I think really, really good conversations.
Yeah, we've had some activity in the chat too, which is nice. We haven't pulled anything up, but yeah, there've been people supporting boomers, calling them the greatest generation. So that's
people
something.
crapping on boomers, calling them nepo babies. I like it. Both sides.
And I don't think anyone noticed me not being present for half of this. I think everyone was just like they had no clue that I was here, but I wasn't here. So.
My final thoughts are that, objectively speaking, Congress just got worse with Thomas Massie leaving across the board. I mean, he is a good human being. I think he's been on. I know he's been on my show. I think he's been on your guys' shows.
You know what? No, I was supposed to have him on.
That's why I think he's a scumbag, and I'm glad he's out.
He Rob Schneidered me. No, he's not as bad as Rob Schneider.
Well, as the surrogate. Yeah, as the surrogate guy here on the show, the network who had him on the show, salt of the earth, just good human being, down to earth, gave me a bunch of time afterwards to talk to me, right, as a person. And, like you can, I've messaged him on Twitter, like just, hey, DM him, and you had back and forth chats. He's an accessible human being, and that's rare. And the fact that
more accessible now, sadly.
No, very much so. But I mean, that I think, is something we should take away, is that it's a very sad day when someone who is authentic and genuine like Thomas Massie is leaving Congress. So yeah, not a good day, regardless of if you wanted him out or not. I don't care. Like he was a good congressperson, and he was probably the last one we had left in Congress who was the closest to what the founding fathers even had in mind. So yeah, sad day for Liberty.
His biography is so interesting. I mean, the man's, an MIT graduate, engineer. He built his own house. He sustains his own farm. He does really, really interesting things and has, I think, great insight on a lot of stuff that people in Congress just don't.
Yeah, absolutely. When he also is the one taking a stand on issues that a lot of the other congressmen either won't because they're bought and paid for, or are too dumb to know about, which is all these things buried in the omnibus bills, which are absolutely evil, unconstitutional. And he's the one standing up and pointing them out. And now I don't know who's going to do that.
Now, I mean, I don't think it's all bad news, because if he does decide to go to the private sector, like you said, the guy is a genius. I mean, he's an inventor. I'm curious to see what he could do if he's spending all of his time focused on that. I mean, it might be
Can we
more
just start a
beneficial
Massie fund
for humanity.
Yeah, we should have started a Massie fund. Well, we'll run it. So, guys, if you want to join the Massie fund, you can Venmo us.
Mass
the
produce
show.
his little badges.
We'll put it in an account. Don't worry. We'll send you receipts, and we'll give it to Thomas Massie if it goes private.
Call it the human fund.
Yeah. A donation is made in your name. All right. Well, that'll do it, guys. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks for your comments. And be sure to follow the show. You can follow on the Lions of Liberty Network. That's our main feed. You get all of our individual shows on that feed, as well as Politics. Politics is every 2 weeks. All our 4 shows are weekly on the Lions of Liberty Network. And you can follow Politics as its own feed as well if you just want to hear this show. And as Odie mentioned earlier, if you want to support us, go to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty or lionsofliberty.locals.com. All right. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Later, gents.
Oh, yeah. Politics more like politricks with your polipricks. Oh, yeah. Politics with your polipricks.